grandpa stole his first buggy in 1892. I met your grandma pig slopping in 46.
Oh, every Christmas we'd visit my Uncle Fred in prison.
And welcome, America, to America's family history show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. Wow, great guest today. Nathan Dylan Goodwin is back, and you always know that's good news because it means he's got another genealogical mystery murder thriller coming out. It just came out on Friday. You're going to want to hear all about it from Nathan. Plus, he's part of a murder mystery event that's going to be coming up the night before Roots Tech in early March. So he'll fill us in on that. It's something he's doing with Diane Southard, Your DNA Guide. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then later in the show, the executive producer of BYU TV's How I Got Here. And if you haven't seen the show or heard about it, as a family historian / genealogist, you are going to love this, and you're going to want to hear how it got started. Eric's got the inside scoop. Hey, if you haven't signed up for our weekly Genie newsletter yet, you are missing out on so much. Blogs from me each week, plus links to past and present shows, and links to stories you'll appreciate as a family historian. Right now, it's off to Boston, Massachusetts. David Allen Lambert is standing by, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. Hello, David.
Hey, Fish, how you doing? Hey, listen, you had just mentioned about Nathan's book. Aren't you mentioned in Nathan's book, I recall?
Yeah, actually, there's a fictitious interview between me and one of the fictitious characters in this fictitious murder mystery, but that's why it's so fun. I am looking forward to seeing it. I haven't seen it yet.
Well, that's excellent news and something definitely worthwhile to look forward to.
And you just got appointed as the Stoughton, Massachusetts town historian. That's kind of an interesting deal. Tell us about that.
Yeah. The first time I've been elected historian for the town. We have our 300th anniversary coming up in a few years. And, well, I've been kind of involved in it since I was 11 years old. So 42 years waiting, and I have a new title.
Very nice. And then you had this adventure crossing Niagara Falls this week. Of course,
Not in a barrel. Not in a barrel.
You gave a lecture on the Canadian side. Then they dumped you off at this bridge and then hauled your luggage 2.5 miles across to the New York side.
Basically, I crossed the Rainbow Bridge, which frightened my daughter because crossing the Rainbow Bridge for pets means your pet has died. So when my sister said, Dad's crossing the Rainbow Bridge today, she thought something had happened to me. But I was retracing the steps of my grandfather, Fish, actually, who crossed the Rainbow Bridge in 1952 to get back to America when he was visiting his father.
Interesting. Isn't that funny how that works out sometimes? Well, let's get into our Family Histoire news because we got a lot of it.
Well, I think we're going to go back to the lost and found department for this first story, and this has to do with a purse lost back in the 1950s by a teenager in Texas. Beverly Williams was in Clear Creek Junior High School, and her photograph is what identified her purse that had been under the floorboards for a number of years. And it also has her hairbrush, pencils, some photographs, some notes. I mean, with the hairbrush, if they didn't have the identification, Fish, I suppose they could turn DNA to figure out who it belonged to.
Absolutely. What a time capsule. That's kind of fun.
Well, the next story really goes to show you can find a lot of things in cemeteries, but how about recipes for cookies? Well, Rosie Grant in Washington, D.C., has done that. In fact, she's become a bit of a TikTok sensation, doing little videos, making recipes up from what's carved on a gravestone. Definitely taking a different turn on gravestone art. This time it's culinary art from a gravestone.
Interesting. And there are not a lot of them out there. She's still trying to find how many there are around there, but she finds out about it on the internet or somebody tells her about it. She says her dream is actually to stumble upon a gravestone with a recipe on it at some point, but they're still not very common.
Hopefully we can get her as a guest at some point. Enslavement in America is a topic of many, many news stories, but you wouldn't imagine this, but there actually are a handful of children from former enslaved African Americans. And Mr. Daniel Smith, who just died at 90, was the son of an enslaved gentleman who was 70 years old when Daniel was born. So his dad was born into slavery.
Yeah, and his dad told all kinds of stories about what it was like back on the plantation. I mean, it really kind of points out historically historically how close slavery still is to so many of us today.
That's true. And if you figure Mr. Smith was 90 years old, that means that there are probably grandchildren of enslaved that are probably still working, and some of them may not even be at retirement age.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
You know, the last story I want to mention is really, really touching, and it's really, really frightening, actually. A girl by the name of Susan Gervais, who's 57 years old, was actually taken from her West Yorkshire, England home by a couple in 1969. Well, they were taking her to Disneyland, then they were going to return her to her mother. But instead, they actually kidnapped her and took her to Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And when Susan was a little older and wanted to get a passport, she asked about why I can't find my birth record, and they basically said, well, we kidnapped you. She's now connected with 4 of her siblings. They're a family of 6.
Yeah.
Her mother died in 2014, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and this one is not a DNA connection story, by the way. They did it using social media to try to connect, and they found each other within 30 minutes.
You gotta love technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Ian Hamilton, who you may not know, when he was a young man in 1950, he was one of the people who stole the Stone of Destiny. So they broke into Westminster Abbey in Christmas Eve of 1950, stole the stone from underneath the coronation chair, and took off with it. Well, the stone broke in half on the way, and they hid it in different places, and ultimately it made it back to Scotland. Well, former Prime Minister John Major basically gave it back to Scotland with the agreement that at the next coronation, the stone would be brought back. So when Charles III takes the throne next year, the Stone of Destiny will be underneath him, as it has been for over 700 years of coronations.
Unbelievable story. And they made a movie out of that.
They did. That's all I have for this week from Beantown. And remember, if you're not a member of American Ancestors, we'd love you to join. Use the coupon code EXTREME and save $20 on a membership.
All right, David, thank you so much. We'll catch you at the back end of the show for Ask Us Anything. And coming up next, Nathan Dylan Goodwin is out with a new genealogical mystery thriller book. Plus, he's got a murder mystery event happening right before Roots Tech. He'll fill you in on that as well when we return in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Genies, it's Family History Month, and our friends at Legacy Tree Genealogists are celebrating by offering for a very limited time $300 off the price of a 100-hour genealogy research project. That's a lot of hours of research by some of the field's top experts. It's the perfect time to order that unique and personalized family history gift at a great price, but you must hurry. This offer ends on Saturday, November 5th. Just go to legacytree.com and use the promo code HISTORY300. That's one word, HISTORY300. Legacy Tree Genealogists has been around for over 18 years and has experts covering every state and virtually every country in the world. If you've been wanting to discover your family story, take advantage of this remarkable Family History Month discount. $300 off the price of a 100-hour genealogy research project. Once again, use the promo code HISTORY300 at legacytree.com. Offer ends November 5th. Genies, our friends at BYU TV have a new series out created just for us, family historians. It's called How I Got Here. It's a fast-paced travel show where young adults accompany their immigrant parents back to where they came from, their countries of origin. These are 10-day trips of a lifetime where these parent-child duos relive the sacrifice, struggle, and circumstances that led their families to leave to where they are now. There's a new episode every week with visited countries including Italy, Serbia, Mexico, Chile, Israel, Slovakia, and Ghana. BYU TV is on Roku and Fire Stick, online at byutv.org, or through the BYU TV app. How I Got Here is available now with a new episode every week. Feel the impact this journey has on those who grew up not knowing. And just a warning, keep a box of Kleenex nearby. You're going to need it. Hey Genies, as we've dug into our family history explorations over the past year, our community at Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies has taken off. This is where you can meet like-minded genealogists who can help you break through those brick walls and find a whole city behind it, occupied by ancestors whose names you don't even know yet. This is where you can learn from your fellow Genies and ask questions, because many in our community have already been into some of the records you're looking for. Genealogy and Breakthrough Strategies is free. What a great place for brainstorming and getting to know other people who totally get your passion for family history research. If you're looking to take the next step in sharpening your skills, here's a great chance to learn from others and give back in areas you've already become expert in. So join us. That page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. It's a long name, but we cover a lot of territory. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. You know, I'm always excited to hear that my good friend Nathan Dillon Goodwin of London has come out with a new genealogical murder thriller. And I've got him on the line right now. And Nathan, welcome back to Extreme Genes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I understand your latest book has come out on Friday, The Sawtooth Slayer. Tell me what you got going with this one.
Yeah, that's right. So this book is a follow-up to the Chester Creek Murders, which was the first book in what will hopefully be a long-running series. And it's set roughly about 2 weeks after the end of the Chester Creek Murders. And basically it's a new case for Maddie and her team to solve using genetic genealogy. And right at the end of the Chester Creek Murders, for people who have read it, a detective appears from Idaho and she says, "Can you help with this case? We've got basically a live serial killer on the run. And can you help with it?" And so basically the Sawtooth Slayer is this book. So they're actually working on a live case, but obviously 2 weeks after the end of Chester Creek Murders is right in the middle of the pandemic.
This is basically your second book taking place in the United States, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So did you have to learn different techniques? Because I know you've been researching your genealogy since what? You were like a kid.
Yes, yeah. I started when I was about 12 and have done it ever since as a hobby. Yeah, the genealogy is quite different, but since about 2014, I've really tried to keep on top of DNA as well, purely for my own interest. You know, that's when I took my first ancestry test in 2014. Even though they weren't available in the UK, I still managed to do it. And so I've tested in all the major companies and I've got my family tested and I've helped a few adoptees find birth parents.
Yeah.
So yes, these two books, the Chester Creek Murders and the Sawtooth Slayer, they're very much genetic genealogy. So they're very different to the series set in England with Morton Farrier, where he's getting into DNA a bit more now, but it's much more with him, it's using traditional genealogy records, whereas this is very much, you know, they've got the serial killer's DNA and that's basically all they've got and they need to use that to solve the case. But yeah, so I needed to do quite a lot of very different research to what I have been doing with the Morton books. Yeah.
So for people who are not familiar with Nathan, the thing about his books is that he goes through and explains all the processes by which these detectives come to these conclusions. And if you are just getting into family history, you're just getting into genetic genealogy or trying to understand the process of research, Nathan actually uses actual records in his book to create the resolution to whatever the case may be. And that's really quite unique. I've never seen anything like it before, and that's kind of why you own the niche, Nathan.
Yeah, it's really important to me. I think I've said before, you know, that my main readership are genealogists, and so I don't want to annoy them or put things in basically that aren't true. However, whichever books I'm writing, the Morton ones or the ones in America, wherever they get their records from or what those records look like and what they contain, that's all real. It's just the content that I fictionalize for the books. So it's the same with the Sawtooth Slayer. The processes are real, how you would do that. And I've had, since the first book came out, I've had lots of people say who work in the industry, you know, where they're actually solving cold cases using genetic genealogy. They say that the book is very accurate for that, you know, and the processes and the way and the methodology is all how it is done. So that's a relief to hear.
Have you actually spent some time with law enforcement people on both sides of the pond?
So I have, yes. So I've spent time with some cold case homicide detectives in America, and I've spent time with retired detectives over here. Again, it's just an increasing amount I've needed to contact those sorts of people just to make sure that's right, particularly in the Sawtooth Slayer. You see quite a bit of the detective who's overseeing the case. And I thought, that's not my area of expertise at all. So I have reached out to several detectives over there and done things by email, but also I was out in Florida over the summer and I actually met with one over there to just make sure I'm getting these things right. I'm not saying things that if a detective were to read it, they'd go, well, that's a load of nonsense. You wouldn't do it like that. So, so I make sure, again, that that's as accurate as I can be. Obviously, there's things that I fictionalize and, have a bit of an author's license there, but certainly I've had a lot of help from those agencies. Yeah.
Have you ever been actually called out by a reader over something that you wrote, early on?
I think a couple of things. Like I think in the Orange Lilies, which was the third Morton book, someone said you've got a tank appearing 6 months before they appeared on the battlefield and something like that. And that's fine. But I think as well, I had someone in The Lost Ancestor, the second Morton book, they said actually the 1921 Canadian census isn't available. And actually it was. And so I was like, actually, he could look at it. It is available. So yeah, there are little things that happen.
Yeah.
But,
nothing.
I try my best not to make mistakes.
I keep a little sticker on my computer screen that says recovering perfectionist because, nothing is ever going to be 100% correct.
No,
and
exactly.
in everybody's mind. So, otherwise none of us would ever do anything, right?
No, absolutely. All learning.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to the book. I haven't seen it yet, but I know it came out on Friday. Where can people get it?
Okay, so various locations. So right now it's out in Kindle and in paperback. Audiobook is in production and will be coming soon. I don't have a date on that yet, but you can get it on Amazon, Kindle and paperback. You can get it on Google Play, iTunes, Nook, Barnes & Noble, all those places. Or you can go to my website, which is nathandyllangoodwin.com, and the links are all there as well. So if that was all too quick, then just go to nathandyllangoodwin.com and you can see all the purchase options.
Wow. So how many books is this now for you total?
Oh, goodness me. So so I've done 9 in the Morton series, plus 2 short ones, 4 local history books, and 2 of these genetic genealogy books. So, yeah, they're racking up.
Yeah, they really are. Do you have a schedule where you go, I got to do 1 a year or 2 a year? How's that work?
Not really, because it kind of depends on the length of the book and the amount of research that's needed. For example, Morton Book 8, The Sterling Affair, that was the longest book I've ever written. It was like 140,000 words. And so that was 14 months from beginning the research to release. So that was quite a long one. The other ones tend to be kind of around the 100,000 mark. And those I can generally get through about 1 a year, roughly. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, who better qualified then to put on a murder mystery show just the night before Roots Tech in 2023? You and Diane Southard, but of course.
Yes, we are very excited. Diane and I have done a couple of webinars based around my books, and they've been really successful. Lots of people have really enjoyed them. She does the DNA side of the webinar, and I do the book side of things. We basically tie the two together. So, we talk about what I've done in the book, and she'll then say how that's relatable for other people with their own DNA situations and in genealogy. And we kind of came up with this idea. I can't remember who first mentioned it, but we talked about it maybe over a year ago and said it would be really fun, when things start to open back up again and in-person events are happening, to do something based around one of the books. So people come along and get to work in small teams to basically solve the murder in the book. And we talked about it and both really loved the idea. And we've been working on it. And so, we've got a date and a location in Salt Lake City, the home of the Venator team who solved the case. And it's the night before Roots Tech begins. So hopefully there'll be lots of people in the city already. So it's Wednesday, March the 1st, and it's 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So basically people will come along at 5 o'clock and there'll be a reception where there'll be drinks, some food, and you'll be given a swag bag which contains your DNA guidebook, Sawtooth Slayer book, which you can have us sign. We'll both be there for the whole evening, and there'll be various other things in the goodie bag. Get to mingle with like-minded genealogists, have some fun, and then from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we will be helping you and guiding you through with a workbook to basically solve the murder. And you'll be kind of going around the room trying to look for clues and find different things in documents, looking at DNA, and hopefully by the end solving the murder.
Oh, that is so much fun. Now, is it based on one of your books, or did you make a whole different story up just for this?
So it's going to be based on The Sawtooth Slayer, this one that's just come out on Friday. It doesn't matter though if people have read it or haven't read it. It doesn't matter also if people have had experience. So people think, oh, I'm not very good at genetic genealogy or whatever. It doesn't matter. You'll be working in teams and we'll be there the whole evening to help you. The real thing is to have a bit of fun, and to kind of look at some of these records, and hopefully people will get ideas for their own genetic genealogy and think, oh, how can I apply this to my own DNA questions? So, the idea really is to have a bit of fun.
Now, typically, these murder mystery events involve people playing certain characters. Is that going to happen in this?
Not that I'm aware of so far. Unless you're volunteering to come along and play the killer, maybe. Not at the moment.
Yeah. Can we eliminate you as the suspect right away?
We can. We can eliminate Diane and I. We're not the killers. We're just going to be there to help.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. And, what a great way to kick off Roots Tech, too, right? The night before.
Absolutely.
By the way, if people aren't aware, you can sign up right now for Roots Tech. It's already open for 2023, and it's going to start on March 2nd. So you want to check that out at rootstech.org. And where can they sign up for the murder mystery, Nathan?
So they can sign up at Diane's website, which is yourdnaguide.com. But you can also find on my website, there's links, and on both of our social channels, so Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, if you just go and find us. And we've been posting links to it. They're on there as well, so you can just hit a direct link there. So yes, it's very exciting. We're really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like you say, it's a very lovely introduction to Roots Tech. And I'll be at Roots Tech as well, by the way. I've got a booth in the expo hall. So if anyone wants any books signed, I will be there. Oh,
that's going to be so much fun. The Sawtooth Slayer is out, and you can catch it in all the usual places. He's Nathan Dillon Goodwin, the author of another genealogical murder mystery thriller. And, of course, they got the murder mystery coming up the day before Roots Tech coming up in 2023, so sign up for that. Thanks so much, Nathan. It's great to talk to you as always, and we look forward to seeing you in just a few months.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
And coming up next, we're going to talk to the executive producer of the BYU TV show called How I Got Here. And if you haven't seen this show, you're going to want to hear all about it. It's coming up next in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. All right, back on Extreme Genes. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and I'm so excited about this show that's on our sponsors over at BYU TV. It's called How I Got Here. And you've probably been hearing me talk about this the last few weeks. And I've got Eric Christensen on the line right now. He's the executive producer of the show. And Eric, welcome to Extreme Genes. Great to have you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I love what you do, and I love this show, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Oh, thank you. I love yours. And let's get into this for people who haven't seen it. It's brand new. It's available everywhere. You can watch it by just Googling How I Got Here, BYU TV, and it'll take you right to the place where you can see all the episodes. There are several of them up already. And basically, go through the concept with us, Eric. You can tell it better than I can.
Yeah. Basically How I Got Here takes all of the heart and the warmth and the transformational power of family history stories and combines it with all of the excitement and adventure and color of a travel series.
Yeah.
And we're always very careful to say it's not a travel series, although it's sort of wrapped around those trappings. But at its heart, I think it's really a relationship series. It's sort of building those relationships, whether those are sort of the immediate relationships closest to us, or kind of looking back a little bit at the relationships that have gone before us and may not be here with us, but strengthening those as well. So it's the combination of all that.
Yeah.
It's the excitement and the heart coming together.
Absolutely. And what it does is it takes somebody from a younger generation, combines them with somebody from the previous generation back where they came from, and they go there. And the older member of the family takes the younger person around and shows them what they missed, basically, and why they should be grateful for what they have. and it's astonishing. How many of these shoots have you been on yourself, Eric?
So I haven't been on any of them. You know, we had 10 episodes in the first season, and we shot it right in the middle of COVID. Part of my job as an executive producer at the network is to sort of shepherd and oversee and give top-level insight and feedback. But we had just an amazing crew working with a production company out of Toronto, actually, called Forte Entertainment. And they were really the boots on the ground for me and sort of like dealing with all of the travel and COVID restrictions. And trial that brought. And so they were out there, and I, from, the comfort of my desk in Provo, Utah, got to oversee via phone and through my computer, which was luxurious for me. But some of these locations were just spectacular, and I wished I would have been there. And on season 2, I can remedy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of the places these twosomes have been going and some of the experiences.
Yeah, we were really all over the globe in season 1, from Zimbabwe to Zambia to Chile to Israel to Mexico and Serbia, Slovakia. And, the whole idea, it was just to create a transformational experience for these children. I mean, we love this idea of our family stories giving us something, changing us in positive ways. And we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we can do that in a really experiential way, where these kids go with their parents to these amazing countries and see, like, this was the little apartment in Serbia where I grew up. In the Serbia episode, there's this beautiful moment where they go back to this apartment, and it's just a time capsule. It had been kept in the family. The father had long since left it as a boy. But it had remained in the family, and like jackets were still in closets and the same pictures on the walls, and they tour it together. And the dad sits down at one point on this little stool that he sat on as a child and said, "This is where I found out that my father, your grandfather, had passed away," and tells that story in the place where it had happened. And that's what, like, going to all of these countries and going to these family sites allowed us to do, to model sharing these stories in a way that was so experiential and real for these kids. And you just saw their hearts changing. Sure. You just saw them transforming through this process.
Did you find some of the kids were hesitant to take this trip and didn't really necessarily care about what they were going to see, and then found it was a whole different experience than they anticipated?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think every story is so unique, but a couple trends you saw. One was that either children never wanted to learn about their family story because they were always a little bit embarrassed by it. It was my parents' accent or the food, here in America or in Canada. I always felt different, and I wanted nothing to do with it. Or you sometimes saw the children actually longing for that thing, to know more, but parents who would say, "Now you are an American," or "Now you are Canadian." We don't talk about Serbia anymore. But you did see some of these kids a little hesitant or reluctant about what embracing this part of their life meant, because for many of them it had been boxed up and sort of like tightly put away and not talked about a lot. And so there was a lot of uncertainty about what these stories were and what it meant and what this place would be like. But, in all 10 episodes, by the end, you saw that complete arc or transformation of a complete embrace of this identity in their lives. One of my favorite just short examples was a girl named Fikile who went back to Zimbabwe with her father. And she had talked about her name, Fikile, was her birth name, and she never used it. She gave herself a new name growing up. She called herself Sue because she just wanted to fit in.
Right. And
by the end of that episode in Zimbabwe, she finally sort of embraces her name, Fikile, and understands what it means and talks about, I'd always wanted to just be another version of myself, and now I just love who I am. And those were the kind of things that you saw happening.
That is so powerful. I was going to ask you how these things manifested themselves among the kids, and that's a great example. Any others?
Oh, so many beautiful stories. Another one I am remembering from the Slovakia episode, where we thought we were just going to have a fun little scene in a dress shop where the mother and daughter would try on these traditional Slovakian dresses called kroj. But at the end of the scene, the mom surprised the daughter and said, "I'd like to buy this for you and want you to have this traditional dress." And just in the moment, they started sort of like weeping and laughing and hugging and crying all at once, and couldn't quite figure out why. And the daughter talked about that moment and just said, "When I saw myself wearing this dress," she said, "This is me. I am Slovak. And I think that was the first time in her life that she had felt that I am Slovak.
You know, I've always thought as a family historian, before you become a family historian, there's this concrete floor beneath you, and you think you know that that's where you come from. That's just kind of the basis when you were born. But over time, as you start to learn more about your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents, you know, that root literally goes down into the ground, and it changes who you are just by what you know about those people who came before you, because they are all a part of you. And it's just fascinating to see when they go over there and they see, oh, I have this culture that's part of me and all these things that my people overcame that brought them to America. And also, I would imagine, the sense of privilege to be in this country.
Yeah, it reminds me of something the son said in our Serbia story. I think there was some wisdom in these words. The father had said, you know, my life in Serbia, I put it in a box and closed the lid. For the father, there was a lot of these hard memories. And the son never asked about any of them. Finally, going on this trip gave them an excuse to take the lid off the box. But the son said, I just want to understand who my father is. And then he paused for a minute and said, and then I think that will help me understand who I am.
It's an amazing show. It's on BYU TV. You can find it on byutv.org and, of course, on the BYU TV app. And it's all over the place. It's called How I Got Here. And I guarantee you watch one episode, you're going to be hooked. You got to watch this show with a box of Kleenex at your side.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, even as the executive producer for the show, I watch every cut, and every time I watch an episode, I just have to wipe a tear, more than once during these episodes. There's something that just gets right to your heart.
Great stuff. He's the executive producer of the show, Eric Christensen. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure. I've loved being here.
And coming up next, David Allen Lambert with another round of Ask Us Anything as we continue on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show in 3 minutes. Genies, our friends at BYU TV have a new series out created just for us, family historians. It's called How I Got Here. It's a fast-paced travel show where young adults accompany their immigrant parents back to where they came from, their countries of origin. These are 10-day trips of a lifetime where these parent-child duos relive the sacrifice, struggle, and circumstances that led their families to leave to where they are now. There's a new episode every week with visited countries including Italy, Serbia, Mexico, Chile, Israel, Slovakia, and Ghana. BYU TV is on Roku and Fire Stick, online at byutv.org, or through the BYU TV app. How I Got Here is available now with a new episode every week. Feel the impact this journey has on those who grew up not knowing. And just a warning, keep a box of Kleenex nearby. You're going to need it. Genies, if you haven't done so yet, you've got to check out Ancestry.com's new storytelling creation center, Ancestry Stories. Their story builder allows you to create a story with 6 different slide types, including a title page, a photo display page, including stock pictures they provide, and documents. And you can write a summary. And with those photos, you can add motion, panning left to right or right to left. For now, these stories can only be created on your iPhone, but Android is still to come and can be saved to your ancestors' pages on your trees. You can then access via phone, and in time, it'll appear on your desktop. You can also share it with family members and friends, whether or not they subscribe to Ancestry.com. For the younger generation that wants stories in a quick and easy-to-consume form, you can't beat this. I've already shared a story with my family, and the reactions are remarkable. Try out these incredible new tools and share your new story creations on social media using hashtag #MyAncestryStory. Genies, it's Family History Month, and our friends at Legacy Tree Genealogists are celebrating by offering for a very limited time $300 off the price of a 100-hour genealogy research project. That's a lot of hours of research by some of the field's top experts. It's the perfect time to order that unique and personalized family history gift at a great price, but you must hurry. This offer ends on Saturday, November 5th. Just go to legacytree.com and use the promo code HISTORY History 300. That's one word, History 300. Legacy Tree Genealogist has been around for over 18 years and has experts covering every state and virtually every country in the world. If you've been wanting to discover your family story, take advantage of this remarkable Family History Month discount. $300 off the price of a 100-hour genealogy research project. Once again, use the promo code HISTORY300 at legacytree.com. Offer ends November 5th. All right, we're back for Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show at extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here. David Allen Lambert is back from NEHGS. And David, our first question is pretty straightforward here. It's from Diana in Kaysville, Utah. And it says, guys, I'm trying to find school photos of my family from the 1940s. Where can I look for these? And I guess the most straightforward thing here, David, is, of course, on Ancestry, they have a huge database of high school yearbook pictures. So that area would be covered pretty easily.
Even in some cases, middle school and maybe even grade school pictures might be identified. Another place is archive.org. My own hometown actually took all of our yearbooks long before Ancestry put them online and put them there as well. So you can try a couple of different places because you never know what's all complete. But school pictures in general, I mean, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all of that, all the way up through high school, those pictures could be divided in a variety of different places. And I can speak from my own experience. When I contacted the school department in Boston for my parents' school records, a couple of my uncles actually had stapled on the upper corner of their card for attendance a school photo, like the little pocket-sized ones that you would have in your wallet.
Huh.
I'd never seen the picture before, and it was great because, you know, here's this one-of-a-kind item because I'd never seen one in the family's possession. The other thing is, so school records, the guidance office at the school, depending on how long they keep records, some of them may have been transferred to the school department for your town or your city, so you could try that. The other one is sometimes historical societies, if you're lucky enough that they salvaged records before they had to destroy them. In my own hometown, I was very sad that all of the high school records and all of that from 1869 down to 1990 were destroyed because they said they couldn't give it out because it had medical records mixed in with the school records. But I'm thinking to myself, over 100 years old shouldn't really matter.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Nothing I can do now. Those are gone. But maybe in your community, they'll turn up. Historical societies are also great because you never knew if maybe besides that little individual picture, there may have been a group picture. I don't know, Fish. When I was a kid, there was always a group photo of all my grade schools.
Yes.
And maybe one of the students wrote down the names of all the classmates on the back of the photograph, and it's in a historical society now. But I'd also turn to one other real important clue that we always use now, social media.
Yes.
There may be a Facebook page for that school. There could be a historical society website where you can make an inquiry on a contact page and say, looking for people that went to school at the Redwood Elementary School 1942 to 1947, and see what comes up.
Yeah, you know, this is really good stuff, and I've actually been doing this a little bit this summer because we had a high school reunion in Connecticut in August, and so I was digging out old pictures, including elementary school pictures, and I found, for instance, that I've got everyone from kindergarten through sixth grade, but I'm missing my fourth grade picture. And so now I'm thinking, okay, we've got a terrific Facebook page for our high school class. And of course, some of them came out of that same elementary school. So I'm going to see if I can find a classmate who has a copy of it who would scan the picture for me so I can pick that up and fill in the collection. As far as high school and junior high, most of those are in yearbooks. I have those. Sometimes elementary schools themselves will have yearbooks, as ours did, with lots of little articles that the children write and pictures in there. I found a picture of me playing in the school band that I'd never seen before. That's from like 1965. So, you know, you never know what you're going to find in these things. But it is a journey, and I think finding old classmates is a great way to do it if you can remember who was in your class in a particular year and kind of fill in that hole. Great question. Thank you, Diana. We got another one coming up next concerning wills. We'll find out what that's about coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. All right, time for our final question on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. It's Ask Us Anything with Fisher and David. And Dave, here's our question from Rance in Milwaukee. And Rance says, in an old will of an ancestor, I found the usual mentions of relationships, but they talked about a known stepbrother as a brother-in-law and a known half-sister as a sister-in-law. What is this about? This is a question that a lot of people run into, I think, especially early in their research journey, David.
Well, and I think that's really having to take into consideration that our ancestors used different terms of family relationships that we use now. I mean, just look at the term brother.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it could be a term of an immediate family member, or it could just be a term of endearment. So that's something where you have to kind of look a little deeper into the genealogy and see if you can't correct what the probate's saying.
Yeah, that's a thought. You know, maybe transcribe what the will says and then put in brackets what the real meaning is based on your own research there. You know, sometimes we'll see a son-in-law referred to as a son because in many cases that's how the father-in-law would view that person.
That's very true. One of the books that comes to mind is one that Barbara Jean Evans did years ago called A to Zacks, which has all sorts of old, archaic, genealogical related terms. And that book may shed some lights on some family relationships as well. Using this book, for instance, it says brother-in-law. It says a half-brother, brother of a person's spouse. In old documents, this term sometimes was used to mean a stepbrother.
There you go. Yeah, this is almost like the DNA matches, right? I mean, you have this many centimorgans. It could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean that, and could mean this, right?
Well, my nephew, who is my half-nephew, also shows up as my half-grandnephew. I'm like, wait a sec. So you get different levels of connection with just DNA, let alone 17th or 18th century court documents. Yeah. But, you know, in genealogy, if there's a will, there's a way to figure it out. No pun intended.
Oh, dear.
So sorry.
Yeah.
How about the term cousin?
Yes. Yeah, that comes up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, because it could be your fourth cousin 3 times removed.
And it could be your spouse's cousin.
That's right. That's right. I mean, family associations are kind of strange. I've sat down at family reunions before where my wife's aunt will say, well, you know, my cousin is also your cousin. I'm like, no, you're my aunt by marriage, so therefore your cousin is no relationship to me. But in the 17th century, someone may have thought all associated levels of family count. It's the degrees of law, I suppose. I mean, It's again, each probate you examine may give you a little more misleading information. And that would include perhaps the wife's probate's going to be different than the husband's probate. Naming the same people, but giving a different relationship.
Yeah, interesting. And, you know, the thing about wills is, I mean, you could do a whole class just on wills, right? We talked about the terminology and relationships here, but you can get into all kinds of explanations about legal terms that are involved there and land. I mean, when they talk about all tenements, outbuildings, you know, what do these things mean? I mean, you could do a whole study on it. I'm sure there's some great books on it as well.
Outbuildings in a probate could refer to buildings that don't even exist. Yeah. Because you could have a lot of land and it's just covering all the bases. Doesn't mean there's a structure on that. That comes up all the time.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Great question. Challenging question, too. Thank you, Rance, and thank you, David. As always, great to have you on, and we'll see you again next week.
All right, catch you later.
All right, David. And thank you to Nathan Dillon Goodwin for coming on and talking about his brand new genealogical murder mystery thriller. And to Eric Christensen from BYU TV, the executive producer of their TV show, How I Got Here. It's a fabulous program you're going to want to check out. If you missed any of it, of course, catch the podcast on Apple Media, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and ExtremeGenes.com, and Spotify. Talk to you next week, and remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.